And we're live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Nugent. Here for a quick federal government update with Colonel Greg Rath, who serves on the Mission Viejo City Council and also running for Congress. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate you joining us and giving this update. How are you?
Thanks, Mark. You bet. I'm doing great.
So, can you tell us what's going on? What's the latest since the last we spoke?
Well, one thing I'm really pleased with is the way the federal government comes on the cable stations every day to update the public. And from what I've seen, they've been very upfront on what's going on. It appears that this. Let me just. I'm sorry. I want to mute this here. I'm sorry. It appears the virus is continuing to grow and the curve is continuing to go up. With that, we probably won't see a peak. The president and his medical team today briefed the press, and it went national on. I saw it on Fox. I'm not sure if the other stations carried it. That the Easter projection of people going back to church and going back to work is way too early. So they moved it out to April 30th, the projection, but they're looking at the peak to be around Easter itself. So they're looking at if we did not do anything, if we just stayed put and continued our work and going to school, this could be just a catastrophe of a couple million deaths. But with everything in place to stay home and obviously to keep your distance from other people, wash your hands. They're looking still at probably, it could peak at 100,000 plus deaths, which is pretty hard to even imagine. Whereas I just remember it could have been 3 weeks ago when they were saying there's 13 cases in Washington, and there's one fatality. And now, as of today, nationwide, I believe it's over 2,400 fatalities or deaths and 140,000 plus cases. So this is just a very uh, terrible virus that is just spreading all over the world. And the last count was 151 countries. China and Russia and some of these hardcore communist countries are probably not probably, but I can probably say for certain are not giving us the correct data. And it's sad to know that this began in China and we can't get our people in there to find patient number one and how this all started so we can have some better information on coming up with a vaccine or some type of treatment. But the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland, are working just incredibly, coming up with different ideas and ways to mitigate this virus to reduce the number of deaths and those that are infected to help cure them, get them back on their feet. So I'm looking here as a local representative, and I'm concerned with the number of cases here in Orange County, California. Right now, we're at 431, and just 2 weeks ago, that was single digits. So there's obviously a breakout here in Orange County. My big concern, and I'm going to work on this tomorrow, is Laguna Woods, or the old Leisure World that used to be called Leisure World. That is where there's almost 95%, 65 plus
Wow.
community. And although there's a hospital right there, Saddleback Hospital, but if there's a breakout in that community, all hell's going to break loose here in Orange County. So I'm going to check with the people over there and see what the latest is. I'm sure they're all, not sure, but I would hope they're all staying home, taking care of themselves, because at that age, what they found out, if you test positive and you're 70 plus and you do have some type of pre-existing condition such as high blood pressure or some other ailment in your lungs, it could be death, and we just don't need that right here in Orange County.
Yeah. Have you heard anything about status of medical supplies in Orange County or Laguna Woods or shortages or anything like that?
I've checked with Mission Hospital. They are short, but more are coming in. Working with a company, I think I mentioned this on our last update. They do apparel for surf shops,
Okay.
and they're transforming their manufacturing to making gowns and masks right here locally here in Orange County. I'm also working with a company that it looks like they're putting some large vans together, or RVs, where you can go around the county to test, and that should be starting up this week. People want to test if they're positive or negative. Obviously, if you want to know if you're negative, just so many people are just so apprehensive and anxious. So that should be up and running hopefully shortly. So I can give you an update probably later in the week on that. And just the charities and the faith-based groups in the area are just doing just a magnificent job. Obviously, they're trying to protect themselves, but they're also helping the those that are have a loved one that has the virus, because hospitals they don't want you actually in the hospital if you're healthy, even though you have a loved one in there. So they're working as in betweens to work with the patients and give updates to the families through FaceTime or something like that on their phone. So far it's looks like mid-April by the time this thing peaks before the curve starts flattening, and then the federal government has mentioned how they want to keep everybody in place till April 30th, which is a month, which is a long time from now. But this is unprecedented.
Yeah.
You have to go back to 1918 when they had the Great Plague back then. But thankfully, we have social media, we have cable TV to keep everybody informed on what's going on, where there's food, where there's gasoline, things like that. So, one other thing that's very important was the federal government got together. We had the Senate just work overtime. I don't know how they do this. They put an 815-page bill together in like 4 days, and I don't know who writes these bills, but hats off to them, except for those that try to slip something in that has nothing to do with the virus. But to put that bill together and get it to the floor and get it passed, and then over to the House and then passed within a week, a $2 trillion bill is pretty amazing. And there's a lot of finance and money available for small business and the general public. But I don't know where that money's coming from. I mean, we work so hard to try to balance your budget, and also whammo, 2 trillion obviously is quantitative easing, where they just move numbers into the system from the Federal Reserve to the Treasury. But it's something that we're in a crisis, and it's has to be done. And I'd like to see the state level get more involved. I know New York is doing as well as expected, since about 45% of the cases are in New York City. Florida, their governor's doing a great job, and he's actually said if you fly in from New York or some of these hot spots, you got to self quarantine 14 days. And New Orleans is doing the same. But it's so sad, and I get so many pictures from friends on Facebook, or friends that just text me, just empty streets, empty Central Avenue in Phoenix, Arizona, where I grew up. Nothing. You drive down the streets here in Mission Viejo, and it's a ghost town, and it's so sad. It's kind of like driving on Christmas Day when everyone's home with their
Yeah.
families. So, but every day is Christmas Day, although it's not a cheery day
Yeah.
like Christmas.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, what do you foresee as far as manufacturing coming back to the United States? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think this is a wake-up call for the manufacturers who moved to China and moved to Indonesia, Mexico, or wherever. The chain of the goods coming in have stopped, obviously, with this virus. So this should say, hey, it may be a little more expensive to make your product here in the United States, but I think when this is all over, everyone's going to reshuffle the deck. bring manufacturing back to the United States. We can't count on China and their cheap labor and exploit that. We need to do it here in America, or at least in North America, between us, Canada, and Mexico. We all
Yeah.
have good relations, and get this thing cured once and
Yeah.
for all. But what I'm seeing is that it's this is not good,
Yeah.
and this is really really serious, and it's hard for me. Today's my granddaughter's 7th birthday, and I can't go to her birthday party. She had to cancel, but it's sad for us who
Yeah.
have to see the youngsters. They're kind of asking so many questions. Why
Yeah.
am I not in school? Why am I staying home?
Yeah,
And
my
some of
son
these
seems to
parents are
like it.
asking the same thing.
With the going back, I had a thought, and what I've been hearing is we have a literal communist government controlling the exports of our own goods that we produced over there with the cheap labor. So I think that's the issue. Not to mention, like you said, the time frame to get our own supplies back here, and it's a tough lesson learned for all of us.
Well, when they let China into the World Trade Organization 20 years ago and made them a third world country and gave them all the benefits of a third world country, and they really didn't keep an eye on what was going on. Obviously, people here in the United States, the leaders enjoyed the lower prices of goods that are coming from these countries. But I think we got to figure this out once and for all. We can't count on China
Yeah.
for 90% of our pharmaceuticals. I mean, that was an eye opener for me. How
Yeah.
did that happen? Where they make 90% of all prescription drugs? So it's something. April's going to be interesting month. April 2020. People are going to look back at April 2020 and say either we stopped this thing or it exploded and just went off the page. And from what I understand, from what I can see from the public, is that this could be the month to let it peak and then let the curve flatten, and then hopefully by May 1st and June it starts to go down.
Okay. So right about 12 minutes. Just want to give you some final words. Maybe you have quite a lot of people watching this one. Any final words for the people that may be stressed out, have little kids watching?
Yes, it's keeping our families tight. People are keeping in better contact. My brother, who I don't talk to all that often, who lives in Arizona, we've been talking much more. My sister, who lives in Texas, and my other sister in Oregon, we're now communicating more. I have a brother that lives in Aruba. He's a teacher at an international college, and he says Aruba's totally shut down. You're not even allowed to leave the house. All travel and tourists, everything is totally shut down. And that island, they depend on tourism. But he's a college professor there, but everything's now by via the internet. My daughters are both teachers in Irvine, 4th grade and 5th grade, and everything is off over the internet. And it's my little granddaughter who turned 7 today. She's in 1st grade, and I mean, this is a very developing year for a 1st grader, and they like to be with their friends and at school and enjoy the playgrounds, and all that has come to a screeching halt. So it's a very difficult time in America, but we need to be optimistic. If you're a Christian or whatever, faith-based, continue to pray and help your neighbors in any way. But again, you have to be able to self-isolate. If you're elderly, if you're 65, 70 or older, but best stay away. If you want to walk in the park, keep your distance. But it's a new normal, and everyone appears to be understanding. I went to the grocery store, and they only let so many into the grocery store at a time. They wipe all the carts and everything. So it appears everybody that I've seen is doing as much as possible to ensure that this thing doesn't spread.
Okay.
Which is, I'm not, I heard 95% of Laguna Hill elderly are, no, what I'm saying is there's Laguna Woods, which is also the old leisure world, is 55 plus community. So I'm saying 100%, not 95, are elderly. if you want to call 55 plus elderly or seniors, I guess.
Don't look at the comments.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, what we
Okay.
do, those people in Laguna Woods really have to stay home and really self quarantine themselves, because we don't want to break out in that community. That's what I was trying to say.
Okay. Well, we're right at about 15 minutes, Greg, so appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, let me just kind of just look at the cases here in Orange County. On our first responders and our medical staff professionals have just been amazing. Our mayor here, Mission Viejo, Brian Goodell, has been a great job. He's put out some videos, and I know the other mayors throughout the county are. Costa Mesa with 11 cases, Fountain Valley 7. I'm looking at Laguna Beach 33, Laguna Niguel 13, Mission Viejo 7, Newport Beach 37, RSM has 4, and I believe Irvine has 38. So that's not good. It's not bad, but it's not good. Anybody who has it is make sure they get checked out and they get on medication to get better. But I just, we got to be optimistic. We got to take care of our friends and neighbors, but keep sharing. And that's why I appreciate you letting me come on Facebook Live, because I have a chance to talk to the public. And as a elected official here in Mission Viejo and running for U.S. Congress, I'd like to keep everybody updated from what I hear from Washington and Sacramento and Orange County, Santa Ana.
Okay. Well, thank you, Greg. Appreciate you coming on. And
okay, let's have an update later. I think we're going to do a town hall on April 2nd with GIR, which is the Greater Irvine Republicans. We're going to do a town hall. Myself and Fred Whitaker are the guests, and Fred is the chairman of the GOP here in Orange County. So I'll be preparing for that. But tomorrow starts a new week, and this is a whole new normal here. But thanks, Mark, for everything you're doing.
Okay. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate your call. Take care.
Okay. Take care.
Okay, appreciate you, Greg, joining us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and end this because we're streaming to Greg's page as a favor as well. May or may not come back on later, so stay tuned, and we'll have some more updates in the near future. So take care, guys. Bye.